Good morning. Welcome to our Indian Polity online classes. So this is one fantastic day. We are starting these sessions online. I'll be starting with a subject called Indian Polity, which is one of the most important areas in the entire general studies. It is most important because once you start understanding the concepts of this Indian polity, it becomes easy for understanding so many things that are happening around us. That is the reason why I said that it is the most important subject. Number two, reading and understanding newspaper will also become easy once you start understanding Indian polity. At the same time, my one more request to you all is that all of you who are opting for public administration, please don't miss even a single class of Indian polity, because understanding the subject will make you to understand 70% of public administration. Hence, understanding Indian polity will pave the way to understand so many areas. Now, let me start the subject with you directly. That is the Indian polity. First, let me show you the syllabus that is present here. Very fastly, I'll go through this syllabus, and immediately after that, we'll be starting this session today. I'll open the document. Kindly look at the document here. So this is the detailed syllabus what we have. I'll just go through this. Let me not discuss each and everyone in a detailed manner today, because anyway, so we are going to have a detailed discussion with all these things. Today, I'll be talking to you regarding the introduction to the Indian polity, rather to the Indian constitution. And once it is over, we'll look into the historical background, followed by making of the constitution, who made our constitution, how they have made. Next is the sources of the Indian constitution, followed by salient features of the Indian constitution. And starting from this preamble, each point is very, very important. Sometimes, see, you might have come across with this word that is called values in the constitution. So the values are missing in the politics, the values are missing in the administration. Those values are nothing but the values that are mentioned within the constitution. That is the reason we always say that anybody who violates any law, especially the politicians and the government job holders, it is because they lack the understanding of the constitution. That is the reason somebody takes corruption, that is considered to be a serious issue. But the people who are accepting the corruption, they don't know they are supposed to work for the people, but that is missing. Hence, while understanding the preamble, there are some important words in the preamble. Understanding each and every word is important, and that is nothing but understanding the values of the Indian constitution. And when we come to this topic, we'll have a discussion on this one. Now again, let me open this. After the preamble is over, we'll be talking about the union and its territories. See, here our Indian constitution is divided into some parts, and each part is again divided into some articles. Look at the highlighted portion, union and its territories, that is mentioned in part 1, articles 1 to 4. Immediately followed by the citizenship, part 2, fundamental rights, directive principles, fundamental duties. Like this, so there are various parts that are present. But if you look at this one, you can kindly observe here. So I have something called part 4 here. This part 4 talks about the directive principles of the state policy. When I'm coming down, again I can see something called part 4A. Kindly observe this. Wherever you are coming across with A like this as suffix, that is nothing but that particular area has been added through the amendment of the Constitution. Next, after this one, so we are going to talk about the Union. When I'm talking about the Union, we'll have a discussion about the President of India, Vice President of India, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, Speaker, Chairman, and how the laws are made in the Parliament, and what is the Supreme Court, what is Attorney General, and what is the Comptroller and Auditor General. So many issues will be there. That's the reason. Look at the size here. It starts at with Article 52 and ends at Article 151. All these articles put together is called Part 5. That is, we are going to talk about the Union. Similarly, when it comes to the states, so this is the place where we are going to talk about the governor, chief minister, assembly, legislative council, high courts. So many other issues will be coming in this particular area. And next one, if you go to the next line here, I'm just scrolling it up here. Just have a look. Look at this. Look at this. If you look at point number 13, which I have highlighted, these are the states in part B of the first schedule. Slowly we'll understand during our discussion what are these schedules. But otherwise, look at Article 238 is present. That is repealed, in fact. Repealed means it is no more available. Again, union territories. They are mentioned in Part 8 of the Indian Constitution. Kindly remember, when I am talking about India, right now in India, we have 29 states and 7 union territories. And if you look at this point number 12, this point number 12 is talking only about the states. And when I'm discussing about point number 12, we are not going to talk anything about the union territories, because the Constitution has mentioned union territories separately in some other part called Part 8. Hopefully I'm clear. So right, I'm telling you in a detailed manner so that you will be understanding certain fundamentals. Next one, the panchayats. So this is nothing but our Zilla Parishad, Mandal Panchayat, and the village panchayats. So when we come to this area, we'll have a discussion. Look at these articles, please, at the numbers. These panchayats are mentioned in Article 243, 243A to 243O. So many articles are there. We need to read all the articles in order to understand the meaning of these panchayats, followed by these municipalities, and followed by the cooperative societies. This is a new concept that has been added to the Constitution very recently. Again, we'll have a detailed discussion. Next one is the scheduled and the tribal areas. So these are the words you might have come across in your discussions so many times. But what exactly is the meaning of this? Certain articles are mentioned under this separately for scheduled areas and also the tribal areas. We'll try to understand when we come to this topic here. This is one important area you have to understand completely and thoroughly to understand most of the social issues that are present in the country. Without constitutional background, understanding thoroughly any social issue, political issue, economic issue is really difficult task. By looking at this, we understood that certain social issues will be understood by reading this particular topic. Now, look at this. If you look at India, we always use the word federation. India is a federation. Federation means it is the division of powers between central government and state governments. How exactly these relations are present? So when we come to this topic, we'll see under this one, chapter 1, where we talk about the legislative relations between central government and state governments. What do you mean by this? At the central level, we have parliament. At the state level, we have state legislature. And how the relations will take place between the central government and state governments. Later, we'll look into the administrative relations. And of course, so many things are there. When we come to this topic, we'll have a discussion. Look at this. Look at this. I'm just highlighting only to highlight one point. Disputes relating to the water. Meaning the Constitution of India has spoken even regarding the this river waters. So today, if you look at India, there are so many rivers starting from north to south or east to west. But you might have seen in certain cases, these rivers, in some areas they are dry, in some other areas they are overflowing. It is getting affected with huge floods. So this is the basic problem that is happening. Hence, since the year 1972, there was a discussion in India about the interlinking of the river waters. Meaning, if you interlink these rivers, wherever you have excess water or surplus water, that will be diverted to those rivers which do not have the waters. It's a fantastic idea. It will incur lots of expenditure, lakhs of crores must be spent on this. It's a beautiful idea. Since 1972, we are talking about this, but no concrete step has been taken even today also. But the new government in the country, again, it started talking about the interlinking of the river waters. But kindly remember, very recently we have seen two states. One is Kerala, second one is Odisha. These are the two states which have decided to request the central government not to go ahead with this interlinking of the river waters. Meaning we are seeing one side. If you interlink the rivers here, there may be certain benefits. But these are the two states, Kerala and Odisha, they are looking at the more disadvantages than the advantages. Meaning they are talking in terms of the displacement of the people. Being in the government, the political parties will speak, they have to raise their voice. But this concept is also present in the constitution, how these river waters should be divided and decided. And who is the ultimate deciding authority. So when we come to this area, so we'll have a discussion in a detailed manner. Meaning, what I want to tell you is that understanding the constitution will understand so many other general things what we see in the newspaper. And kindly remember, the Constitution of India is ultimate. It is ultimate, and above this constitution, I don't have anything in India. That's the reason why the constitution is considered to be the supreme law of the land. Just remember these points. Now, let me finish up this one. Look at this. Coordination between the states, and later we'll see what is finance, property, contracts, and suits. We'll understand when we come to this topic. Similarly, there is something called trade, commerce, and intercourse within the territory of India. Again, we'll see when we come to this topic, meaning this particular area is talking talking about the business activities that are happening within India. How the business will take place in India, how the states are expected to cooperate with each other, and what is the role of the central government, we'll see. Next, when it comes to the services under the union and the states, look at this. So many times you might have heard this word, public service commissions, meaning the examination you are going to write, that is going to be conducted by UPSC, that is Union Public Service Commission. And wherever you come across with the word Public Service Commission, it is an agency which will conduct the examinations. Next one, if you look at this, tribunals. So the tribunals are mentioned in the constitution. Of course, originally not, they were added later. But what are these tribunals? Example, see, you might have come across with the words Central Administrative Tribunal and State Administrative Tribunal. Apart from this, so many other tribunals are also there. Constitution is permitting for the establishment of these tribunals. And another most important one is the elections. India is a democratic country. the concept of democracy is reflected. The concept of democracy is reflected in the form of these elections. Next, special provisions relating to certain classes. Official language. What do you mean by this? Let's try to understand. But for our kind information, I'll just tell you one point. Here the word you have seen, that is the official language. Sometimes you will also come across with the word national language. Generally in India, we always say Hindi is our national language. But just to remember this one, it is a general assumption and the people started saying, and it became a common phenomenon to say that Hindi is the national language. There is no doubt majority of the population in the country, that is more than 40%, they are speaking Hindi. That is number one. But number two, when it comes to Hindi as a national language, it is nowhere mentioned. Just to remember this for our information. It is not just going along with somebody's statements and arguments. We should know what is a fact. That is the reason why I am telling you. Otherwise, somebody may say this is the national language. In general perception, it is correct, but legally, Constitution has mentioned it nowhere. Neither the Constitution nor any other law mentioned something as the national language. Just remember this one. So this will be useful for you tomorrow for the sake of healthy arguments. Look at this next. Later we have the emergency provisions. So this is the place where we are going to discuss about the national emergency, president's rule, and financial emergency. When we come to this area, it's a very, very larger one. We'll have a detailed discussion about the each and every one. Next, we have some miscellaneous items here, followed by amendment of the Constitution. Wherever I am coming across with the amendment, the simplest word is the modification. It is a modification. Next one, temporary, transitional, and special provisions. These are another important areas. Sometimes they will also come into our discussions. What do you mean by this? The temporary, transitional, and special provisions? We'll try to understand slowly one after the other. But see here, since you are preparing for the civil service examination, understanding the concepts that are related to each and every one is important. Kindly remember, it's my sincere request. Sometimes some people will ask me, sir, in the civil service examination, what are the important areas? But kindly remember, there is nothing like any important area. Every area is important, because what is going to be asked in the examination is really difficult to predict. By looking at certain current affairs issues, so we can say this may be a possible question, right? And a superficial understanding of any subject does not give you the service. Take it for granted. Hence, let us serious from today itself, from day one. Of course, I can see so many are watching. Though I said it is morning 5 o'clock, so many of you have come. So many viewers are there. I really appreciate so your efforts here. And kindly continue these efforts along with me till you get into the service. That's it. You just work for 1 year to 1.5 years. That will give you a fantastic service. Provided consistency has to be maintained. You are joining me at the same time every day, and we are continuing. And whatever the things I will ask you to practice, you just do it. You are required to follow my instructions. And apart from this, if you want to do something else, that is up to you. I don't object for this. But if you miss any of the things what I am going to tell you here, getting into good service may be delayed. That's the only thing. And I don't want any one of you to get delayed. Please get into the service as early as possible because the nation needs meritorious candidates and the people with values and the people with ethics. That's the reason why I want you to get into the service at the earliest. Next, look at this. Short title, commencement, authoritative text in Hindi and repeals. So they are covered here. And after this one, during our discussion itself, we will be coming across with the schedules. So we have first schedule to 12th schedule. So this is the constitution, what we have today. And but remember here, in the original constitution, there were only 8 schedules. Now the number has been increased to 12. So like this, so we'll be looking into each and every chapter, so one after the others. Hopefully, you might have understood that. So it's a very, very lengthy area. And each and every point in this one, I'll be talking to you, how you will be answering, how to answer objective type of questions, and how to answer descriptive type of questions. So that I'll be telling you, and you will be putting the same thing on the paper. But kindly remember, practice, practice, and practice with consistency. That only gives you the service. So we have seen the syllabus, what we are going to deal with. But kindly remember, once again, I am telling you, for completing this Indian Constitution, I'll be taking a good amount of time because each and every point I need to explain you in a very detailed manner because this area is related to social issues, economic issues, and various other issues. And if you want to write better essay, the background of the Constitution is a must. If you want to attempt this ethics paper, so the background of the Constitution is a must. And various other papers are also linked in the civil services rather than any examination to the Indian Constitution. And above all, what are the topics I have shown you now? Majority of the topics are also the part of the public administration. That is the reason, don't miss any class. Whether you are writing with public administration or any optional, that is secondary, but don't miss any class. Keep attending these classes along with me. Now, let me start the subject. So I have taken almost more than 20 minutes to talk to you regarding the syllabus itself. But anyways, whenever it is possible, of course, I'll be uploading the document that is related to the syllabus, and kindly look at the syllabus very frequently only to keep yourself in touch with the syllabus. The entire syllabus has to be there in the brain. Then it becomes easy for us so that we can understand what is that we are going to read in this particular subject. Number one. Number two, let me take up the topic directly. We will start the subject called Indian polity. Let me tell you 1-2 points regarding Indian polity. Wherever you are coming across the word, the Indian, we are talking about something about the country called India, that is our India and our nation. And beside that, you will see a word called polity. What is the meaning of this polity? Polity is nothing but the political situation that is present in the country. Hence, in this subject, we are going to talk about the political situation of India. Similarly, if you see, there are various other topics which talk about Indian economy, Indian geography, Indian history, so many things are there. Similarly, we have a topic called Indian polity. Now, where from this political structure has come to India, first of all? And what is the basis of the political structure in India? I always say, in India, we have a constitution, and in India, we have central government, state government, and today at the local level also we have the local governments. In a simple format, everybody in the country, they will understand that We have a prime minister for India and there is a chief minister for their respective state. Wherever they are living in the country, if they are coming under the jurisdiction of any particular state, they know that they have a chief minister. And if you go into the details of this one, the prime minister is the prime minister for the nation and the chief minister is the head for a particular state. State is one of the smaller components in the bigger unit called the India. Hence, wherever I use the word state, I must have somebody called the chief minister. Of course, the constitution also permitted that some union territories may also have the chief minister, and the constitution has given the permission to the parliament. Accordingly, in Delhi and Pondicherry today, so we have the chief ministers. That is number one. Number two, when I'm talking about the political situation, the basic source of the political structure in India is the Constitution of India. What is the meaning of this constitution? Wherever you are coming across with the word constitution, it is nothing but a set of rules and regulations. What do you mean by these rules and regulations? Kindly see here, sometimes you are going on a bike or on car. During that time, sometimes you will come across with the concept of one-way traffic, meaning that traffic is permitted only in one way. Knowingly or unknowingly, if we are coming in the opposite direction, that is nothing but the violation of the traffic rules. So violation of any rule is nothing but the violation of the law. But at the highest level, the most important law for me is the Constitution. Based on the principles that are present in the Constitution, various other laws in the country are made. For example, here you might have seen in India, let me tell you one or two important programs. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, National Food Security Act, or Lokpal Act. So these are the acts, meaning the laws that are present in India. These laws are prepared by taking the provisions that are present in the Constitution. At the highest level, the Constitution of India is also nothing but a set of rules and regulations. Various legislations, various regulations put together is called the Constitution, and that Constitution gives the direction to the people. That Constitution will give the direction to the government. In the absence of these rules and regulations, governing the nation is really a difficult task. Kindly remember, I would like to add one point from day one itself. So many times you will come across with the words government and governance. What do you mean by this government? Government is a structure. It is a group of people that are present at the higher level. Governance is the delivery of the services to the people. You might have seen nowadays so many political parties and so many governments, rather, maybe the prime minister or chief ministers of some states, they are talking in terms of the less government and more governance, meaning we concentrate less on the structure and we concentrate more on the delivery of the quality services. This is the meaning of the governance. Of course, there is a concept called good governance that is also part of our syllabus. On day one, I have given you the meaning of the word government and also about the meaning of the word governance. On this, we are going to elaborate over a period of time. So this is number one. Number two, Hence, every law that is present in the country today, that is based on the Indian Constitution. Hence, the Constitution of India is considered to be the supreme law of the land. What do you mean by this? Above the Constitution of India, I don't have any other law. Every person, including the President of India, including the Prime Minister, down to the level of a common man, everybody has to accept the principles that are present in the Constitution. Just like India has got its own constitution, which is called Constitution of India, every country in the world has got its own constitution. In India, I am using the word Constitution of India. If I go to America, it is called American Constitution or Australian Constitution or any country's constitution, South African Constitution. But without constitution, governance is really difficult task for the governments. And the Constitution of India is applicable for the entire region of India. That is, if you look at India, in the beginning also I told you, we have 29 states and 7 union territories. Wherever I am living in this particular larger area, maybe in the center of the country, maybe in the northern part, southern part, eastern, western, or any nook and corner of the country, including Indira Point, the southernmost tip of India. There, the Constitution of India is applicable. It is not just applicable only for the Indians, it is also applicable even for the foreign nationals. Meaning, this is applicable for every person who is living in India or who is staying in India. Similarly, when we go to this United States of America, example I am telling you, we will be governed by the Constitution of United States of America. If you go to Australia, we are governed by the Constitution of Australia. So this is nothing but that constitution on that particular land is considered to be the supreme. Hence, it is called law of the land. Hope you are following me. It is the supreme law of the land. It is the law of the land. And above the constitution, I don't have anything. And that is the ultimate for me. Irrespective of the caste, creed, sex, religion, or place of birth, everybody must abide by this particular law, and that is the supreme law of the land. So that is what we are going to have a discussion, and I'll try to show certain points to you. Let me open the document and we'll have a discussion on this. Look at this. We are talking about the introduction to the Indian Constitution. The Constitution is nothing but a set of rules and regulations. Next, these rules and regulations are called laws or acts or legislations. After a period of time, we are going to understand that in India, rather in any country, we have two types of laws. One is the constitutional law, second one is the ordinary law. Both are laws, both are implemented, but the difference is only one thing. If any law is mentioned within the constitution, that is called constitutional law. And certain laws are made by the parliament, certain laws are made by the state legislatures. They are empowered to make it by using the provisions that are present within the constitution. And those laws are called ordinary laws. I told you sometime back, just now. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, National Food Security Act. So these are the ordinary laws. So they are made by the parliament. Apart from this, so many rules and regulations are present in the constitution. They are called constitutional laws. Kindly make a difference. Okay. Now, again, I'm going back to the document. So we'll try to see. Now look at this. The Constitution of India is considered to be the supreme law of the land. Look at this. All other laws in the country are subordinate to the Constitution, meaning there is nothing above the Constitution of India. Kindly remember this. So many times when our politicians or the ministers who are there in the power, or sometimes the courts, they always talk in terms of the Constitution, and the rules that are mentioned in the Constitution must be abide by every person who is living in this country. And if you want to make a change that is present in the Constitution, and for that reason, you need to amend the Constitution. I told you already, amendment is nothing but the modification. More points I will tell you when we come to this topic. Am I clear? Now, again, let me go back to the document. Look at this. Look at this, the government. When we have a word called that is a government. Kindly remember, we have a very broader meaning when I am talking about the word that is called the government. Some of you are already there with me, you must be knowing. But for freshers, let me tell you a few points here. When I am using the word the government, most of the times we use it in a very general manner, and just like a common word we are using it. So today there is a government at the central level, and in each state also we have a government. Sometimes we'll say at the central level we have NDA government, that is National Democratic Alliance government, meaning we are using the name of a political party or the name of the coalition group to represent the government. Or I can say that it is the Narendra Modi's government. Example I am telling you. Or previously it was UPA government, it was Manmohan Singh's government. Meaning when I am using the word government, the prefix what I am using is that either the name of the political party or the name of the prime minister. This is how it is generally used. Of course, even in the televisions or in the newspapers or in the common discussions, this is what is happening. And at the state level, also the same thing is there. You have a political party that is there in the government. So we use the word the BJP government at so and so state level, or so and so person is the chief minister. And during that time also we use this word government. But there is an elaborate and a broader meaning for the word that is the government. Whenever we are talking about the government in a broader perspective, the government has got three wings: legislature, executive, and the judiciary. In the broader concept, in the absence of anyone, that is not called government. But since the beginning, most of the countries are using the concept of government in a narrow perspective. When I am talking about the narrow perspective, I am talking only the executive part. What do you mean by this executive? Executive is nothing but this is the group of ministers headed by the prime minister. This is the group of ministers headed by the chief minister at the state level. That is called executive. But now we are going to have a detailed discussion in an elaborate manner with respect to the broader meaning of the word government. Okay. From tomorrow onwards, I'll be showing you some of the objective type of questions. But today, let me give you this introduction to you. Now, I'm going to the document again, opening this. Look at this. the government. The word government has a broader meaning. Look at this. The government has three wings or three branches. You can use anything. One is the legislature, second one is the executive, and third one is the judiciary. You might have heard all these words before. Whenever you are talking using the word judiciary, I am talking about the system of courts that is present. When I am using the word executive, in reality, I am talking about the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. And when I am talking about the legislature, I am talking about the institution that is called the Parliament. It is called Parliament at the central level, and the legislature is called State Legislature at the state level. Kindly remember this. See, I would like to introduce one word to you that is called federation. You might have come across with the word federation so many times, but let me tell you the actual meaning of this. We always use the word India is a federation. Just like India, so many other countries are also federal in nature, meaning they are also federations. Wherever I am using the word federation, this is nothing but there is a division of powers between central government and state governments. That is called the federation. That's the reason, if you look at the central level, whatever the office that is present at the central level, similar type of office is also present at the state level. In most of the cases, rather, except a few things, every office is also present at the state level. Look at this. There is a president for India and there is a governor for each state. There is a prime minister for India and there is a chief minister for each state. There is Union Public Service Commission for entire India, and in every state I have State Public Service Commission. So this is nothing but the division of functions. What is this? In fact, whatever the president is doing for the entire nation, same functions are performed by, or almost same functions are performed by the governor at the state level. Whatever the prime minister is doing for the whole nation, same functions are also performed by the governor at the state level. UPSC is conducting the examination for all India services and central services. But when it comes to the State Public Service Commission, the function is the same. It is also conducting the examinations. But these examinations are related to that particular state only. When you divide the functions like this, there will be less burden on any one institution. And India, we have adopted the concept of federation. But kindly remember one important point. Anyway, tomorrow I will show you in the form of questions. Whenever we use the word federation, this is the meaning. Division of functions between central government and state governments. But the word federation is not mentioned in the constitution. Kindly remember the difference between other examination and the civil service examination. In other examination, they will just ask you some simple question regarding federation. You can write something, that's over. But when it comes to the civil services here, we need to know India is a federation, but the word is not mentioned in the constitution. Why it is not mentioned? That is a point here. Hence, the argument is that India is not a complete federation. India is not a true federation. It is called Khasi federal. Why? Why so? Why we did not use the word federation? Kindly keep these questions in your mind. Every question and every doubt what you are going to get, that will be answered in our future classes. India is a federation, there is no doubt for me, but the word is not mentioned. Why the word is not mentioned? Again, we'll see, we'll try to understand over a period of time. So these analytical points are important for you to get into the civil services with ease. In the absence of understanding these fundamentals, it takes a lot of time for any candidate to get into the civil service. But you need not worry. I'll give you the whole explanation. I'll clarify each and everything. And as I told you, if you have any doubts, smaller, bigger, medium, anything, feel free. You just mail it to me to the possible extent. I'll try to answer your doubts. I'll clear your doubts. Okay. Now, so let me go back to the this word here. There is a federation I told you. Let me open the document once again. Let me go back here. So the government has three wings, means legislature, executive, and judiciary. Right? I'm going further now. Look at this. The legislature is divided into two categories. India is a federation. Yes, we need to have the two legislatures. One is the central legislature, which is also called the union legislature. Kindly remember this. Sir, I am giving you various terms here only to make you aware of the different terminologies that is being used by UPSC. UPSC may use the word central legislature, or UPSC may use the word union legislature. It is nothing but the parliament. I'll come to this. So the legislature is into two categories. Number one is the central legislature. Number two is the state legislature. Now we'll try to understand each and every point related to this. The central legislature is also called the parliament. Very, very, very important one. The word parliament you might have heard so many times, rather every day we come across with the word parliament here. Even now also, the parliament session is going on. The parliament is meeting. Fine. So regarding that, we are talking that parliament is otherwise called central legislature. Next. Look at this. Just a moment. Yeah. Look at this now. This is one important one you need to understand very thoroughly. The parliament is divided into three branches. Number one, that is the Lok Sabha, otherwise called the lower house, otherwise called House of People's Representative. See here, if you look at the words Lok Sabha and the lower house, these are the general terminologies that we are using. But the Constitution has mentioned the word House of People's Representatives. That is the reason, especially in the civil service examination during the mains, at least at one place, you please mention the word House of People's Representatives. In some other places, you may use the word Lok Sabha, but at least in one place you are expected to use it, because this is what is mentioned by the Constitution. Number one, meaning parliament is nothing but Lok Sabha, which is otherwise called the lower house, which is also called House of People's Representatives. Number two, in parliament we have another house that is called Rajya Sabha. That Rajya Sabha is also called the upper house, but the Constitution has used the word Council of States. It is the Council of States, meaning these are the people who are getting elected by the elected MLAs from the states. That is the reason why they use the word Council of States. Very, very important. One is the Lok Sabha, second one is the Rajya Sabha, and the third one is the President of India. Regarding each and every point, so we are going to have a detailed discussion. Let me go further again. Look at this. Have a look at this. Parliament is nothing but Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and the President. Now go again. Look at this. When you look at this one, the parliament means Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and the president. So many times it was a question in various examinations. Now, when you go to the state legislature, that state legislature is divided into the state legislative assembly, which is also called the lower house. Second one, the state legislative council, or it is also called the upper house. And the third one is the governor. Just to remember these points kindly, I have a central legislature, I also have a state legislature. Central legislature means Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and the president. In the absence of Lok Sabha, or in the absence of Rajya Sabha, or in the absence of president, I cannot use the term, the so-called the parliament. In the similar manner, at the state level, also we have something called state legislature. It is divided into state legislative assembly or the lower house. Kindly remember one thing. In each and every state, you need not have the two houses. Meaning, the Constitution of India has permitted for either unicameral legislature or the bicameral legislature. Kindly see here. If I have in any house, in any state, if I have only one house, that is called the state legislative assembly, and in that state I can say it is the unicameral legislature. But when I have both assembly and the so-called legislative council, so then it is called, you can just have a look at this for your understanding, I'm just writing, then it is called bicameral legislature. This is called the bicameral. Hope I'm getting it. But in most of the states, you will see, you will have only one thing, that is called the assembly. Look at this, I'm just writing here. If I have only assembly, then it is called the unicameral. Unicameral is nothing but only one house that is present. Now, kindly remember, I would like to tell you one point. If it is a state, there is a state legislative assembly. And there is a procedure that is mentioned within the Constitution. You may go ahead and create something called the other house, that is called a state legislative council. In any state, if I have two houses, the legislative council is called upper house. In any state, I have only one house, that is legislative assembly. There we don't use the word lower house or upper house. Kindly remember this very important point. If council is present, then only we use the word upper house. If council is present, then only legislative assembly is called the lower house. That's it. Just like Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and the president. State level, assembly, legislative council, and governor. That's it. Hopefully I'm clear. Now, look at this. So let me tell you some points regarding the Lok Sabha. We'll have a discussion on this. The Lok Sabha is the lower house of the parliament. The Lok Sabha is also called the House of People's Representatives. Kindly remember these words. Look at this. According to the Constitution of India, the strength of the Lok Sabha should not exceed 552. Look at this. Kindly remember one point. Here I have used a word called strength. Wherever we are coming across the word strength, there I am talking about the number of members. Kindly remember these fundamentals. When I am using the word strength, I am talking about the number of members who are present in this particular house. Okay. Now, look at this again. I am going back to the document. Look at this. So, according to the Constitution of India, the strength of the Lok Sabha should not exceed 552. According to the Constitution, please. Now, I'm scrolling it down. Look at this point. The maximum strength is 552. And out of this 552, it should not be more than 530 from the states. I told you already, India is divided into states and the union territories. And out of 552, not more than 530 from the states, okay, and not more than 20 from the union territories. Hope you are getting it. Beyond 20 is not permitted from the union territories. Beyond 530 is not present from the states. Look at this. At present in India, we have 29 states and 7 union territories. Is it okay? I'm just let me make one change here. At present, there are 29 states and 7 union territories in the country. That's it. Look at this next. And we have seen 530 plus 20, it became 550. And the constitution is permitting one more thing. Look at this here. Not more than 2 Anglo-Indians may be nominated by the President of India. Meaning, the constitution has permitted the President of India, if you want to nominate 2 members to the Lok Sabha, you may nominate, but those 2 members must belong to a community called Anglo-Indian community. Other than the people who belong to the Anglo-Indian community, they cannot be nominated by the President of India. Kindly remember one point. When I am using the word nominated, it's a very, very simple one. If it's a direct one, nominated is nothing but there is no election process, there is no selection process. It is the government of the day, it is the Prime Minister of the day who will recommend the President of India that who should be nominated. Depending on the advice that is given by the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister, the President is nominating, but it is not a compulsion. Constitution made it very, very clear. President may nominate not more than 2 Anglo-Indians. For example, look at today's Lok Sabha. This is the 16th Lok Sabha we have in India. And whenever I am using the word 16th Lok Sabha, kindly remember, so far 16 times in India, Lok Sabha elections have been taken place. The first one being in the year 1951 and 52. After that, so many elections have been conducted for Lok Sabha, and the latest one was conducted in the year 2014. This is the 16th time, hence I am using the word 16th Lok Sabha. And if you look at 16th Lok Sabha, so far the President has not nominated Anglo-Indians to the Lok Sabha. Meaning, so far the Prime Minister has not recommended for the nomination. Maybe in future, the Prime Minister may be recommending the President of India. Accordingly, the President of India may nominate not more than 2 Anglo-Indians to the Lok Sabha. Kindly remember, maximum strength is 552. Out of that, these are all the questions in the examination, please. Not more than 530 from the states, not more than 20 from the union territories, and not more than 2 members may be nominated by the President of India. Okay, now again I'm opening the document. Look at this here. The present strength of the Lok Sabha is 545. See here, so 545 I said this is what we are maintaining, but out of this 545 I have also included the 2 members. As of today, so I don't have 545, it is only 543. Just remember this. Out of 545, there are 543 members who are elected through the direct election. So again, we are coming across with another word that is called the direct election. Let me tell you one point regarding this direct election. Whenever I am using the word direct election, this is nothing but the people of the country, they are going out and voting in the elections. Recently also the elections were conducted for Lok Sabha. Hopefully every one of you might have voted in that election. If we are permitted to go and vote in the election, that is called the direct election. meaning those representatives are elected by the people. Hence, assembly elections are direct elections because we are voting in that election. Sometimes you will also come across with the word indirect election. In the indirect election process is going on. There is a methodology, but the people are not permitted to vote. That is called indirect election. Example, election of the President of India. Example, election of the members of the Rajya Sabha. These are the examples for indirect election. But Lok Sabha and assemblies are the direct elections. Okay, now look at this again. So direct election means the people ought to elect their representatives. Clear? Next, look at this. The remaining two members belong to the Anglo-Indian community, and they are nominated. They are nominated by the President of India. Okay, now, right. So I'm just coming back to you here, and see here, just a moment. So we have initiated the session here today, and for today, let me stop it here. You can just go and do your some work, but kindly make yourself available from 5 to 7 in the morning. Sometimes we'll be taking minimum 1 hour we'll be taking, and gradually will increase the time. Gradually will increase the time, but we will be starting at 5 o'clock itself. So because that is the important one, we have to start our day early so that we can also have the time for so many other things. If you want, you can observe today, because you got up early, because you are there with me during the first hour, and now I'm stopping it here, and now you can observe your day, how it goes on. You can do so many things. You can do so many things. You can read so many other things, and still you will have some time at the end of the day. That is the advantage of getting early in the hours. Okay, and again today evening we'll meet for current affairs session, and tomorrow we'll continue this. Tomorrow I'll try to finish up the whole concept of introduction, and slowly we'll look into this. Clear? If you already have any books with you, let those books be with you. But if you don't have any book also, no problem. This is not the stage. You need not read any book at this stage. Entire thing and everything I will give it to you. Okay, so in the form of the class itself and in the form of e-notes, I'll just upload the notes in the site, and the topics that are related to Indian polity are already present in kalyansir.net. in that site. You can just go through that site and you can read that. Am I clear? So I'll stop at this stage, and thank you so much for being with me now. So I'll see you in the evening for current affairs. So thank you so much.